It's 10:15 in the morning. I've got a bunch of hungry folks coming over for barbecue at 6 tonight, and I haven't even bought my brisket yet. Let's go shopping. So today, I'm going to show you how to speed run an amazing brisket in 6 hours instead of 16 by going inverted.
Bullshit. No, he was, man. It was a really great move. He was inverted.
Ready? Let's go. I'm going for a restaurant-style trim that gives you good eating from every slice at the cost of more trim loss. Starting on the meat side, I'll remove the chunk of heel fat and then clean up the surface of the meat. I'll trim the sides so that I can judge the thickness of the fat cap when I trim it down. And I'll finish by trimming the meat that's too thin and round out the corners that would otherwise tend to dry out and burn during the cook. Flipping over to the fat side, I'll start by scalping the mohawk so that the brisket is close to uniformly thick from end to end. Then I'll trim the fat cap down to about 1/4 inch thick everywhere while shaping it to remove low spots where juices would pool and prevent bark formation. If you're new to trimming brisket, I'll put a link in the description to a great video by Joe Yim, who's at Leroy and Lewis Barbecue in Austin, on how he trims brisket. As Joe says, the goal is to shape the brisket so that it cooks evenly and there's no bad slice. My brisket had a starting weight of 14.75 pounds and yielded a final trim weight of 9.25 pounds after removing a bit more than 3 pounds of fat and 2 pounds of meat. The next thing I'm going to do is an optional cheat made necessary by how I'm going to accelerate cooking. I'm mixing a very small amount of curing salt with water so I can spread it evenly over the entire brisket. As it cooks, the nitrite in the curing salt turns into nitric oxide and reacts with the meat to create the telltale smoke ring. Normally, smoke supplies the nitric oxide, but because of how I'm accelerating cooking, the myoglobin in the meat will be denatured and unreactive before the smoke can get to it. You can skip this step if you don't care about the smoke ring. It's just for appearances, but it does make for a very convincing forgery. For the rub, I'm just using the classic Dalmatian mix that's equal parts kosher salt and coarse black pepper. But you should do you. With the brisket prepped, I'll insert my combustion predictive thermometer at a slight downward angle through the thickest part of the point muscle so that one of its 8 sensors will be near the true core, and another sensor will measure the true surface temperature. This information is going to let me go as fast as possible by steaming my brisket. Before the barbecue police show up, let me explain. This graph is the heating profile for a traditional 16-hour low and slow barbecue brisket. At a pit temperature of around 250 degrees, the cold brisket spends the first 4 hours slowly warming and then stalls. That's because the surface is sweaty, and these evaporating juices are cooling the surface so that it can't get much hotter than 150 degrees until it dries out. This is the real cooking temperature the brisket actually feels, the meat's surface temperature. For the next 4 hours or so, the temperature of the brisket rises very slowly because as the meat gets a bit hotter, its muscle fibers contract a bit more, squeezing more juices to the surface where they evaporate and keep that surface temperature from climbing quickly. Before the brisket is ready to wrap at about 180 degrees, about 20% of its weight has vaporized. That's about 2 pounds of water or more. Vaporizing all of this water takes about 10 hours of cooking when doing things the traditional way. I don't have that much time to waste today. Steaming the brisket in a covered tray puts a lid on evaporation, so the meat's temperature will steadily climb without stalling. By having my grill at 500 to 600 degrees, the water at the bottom of my tray just boils faster, creating more steam to transfer heat faster, which shortens the cooking time. But the surface of the brisket isn't drying out, so its temperature won't exceed the boiling point of water, keeping it from burning to a crisp. This approach lets me get my brisket all the way to its final doneness temperature of 205 degrees in about 2.5 hours instead of 12 hours or more. But you might wonder about the time needed to render the fat and break down the collagen. Chemical reactions like the conversion of collagen into tender gelatin are governed by temperature. They are also exponential in nature. Increase the temperature a little bit, and things go a lot faster. For collagen and brisket, a good approximation is that for every 20 degrees Fahrenheit that you increase the temperature, collagen converts into gelatin about 1.8 times faster. But once you're above 195 degrees, that rate increases to about 2.8 times faster for every 20 degrees you increase the temperature. For those of you with some knowledge of physical chemistry, all of this follows from using the Arrhenius equation. You can use this equation along with the heating profile to work out how much each phase of a low and slow cook contributes to the tenderizing effect of collagen breakdown. Graphs like this often suggest that tenderization and rendering mostly happen during certain phases of the cook. But actually, less than 20% occurs during the phase that's often labeled the tenderizing step. In fact, more than half of the collagen breakdown occurs after the brisket is wrapped for that final push to done. This probably surprises you. It certainly surprised me. By avoiding the stall and quickly getting the brisket up to temperatures above 195, I can get into that fast kinetics zone and quickly start racking up the collagen conversion points, easily overtaking all of that tenderization that happens during the first 12 hours of conventional low and slow smoking. And as the core temperature closes in on 205, it's time to get ready for the second stage of this brisket speed run, smoking. So I've got my big green egg cranked up to 350 degrees using my giant grill gauge with temperature control from the combustion engine that will be coming out later this year. Once the steam brisket is uncovered, it starts to cool rapidly because of evaporation. I'm smoking at a high temperature because I want to avoid the core temperature dropping out of that fast kinetics zone, so that we're continuing to tenderize the meat while smoking. And the higher smoking temperature is also necessary to dry the surface and develop the smoky bark in the time that I have remaining. I'm smoking with small splits of white oak that I've pre-burned to embers, just like a lot of Pitmasters. Embers give you a cleaner smoke with more of the desirable compounds that form from high temperature smoldering, while the less desirable compounds have to percolate out through the wood through the hot char zone at the surface where they're reburned. This brings up something that a lot of people misunderstand about smoking. Many think it's like painting a wall, that you need to apply coat after coat of smoke to build up the flavor and the color. But that's not how it actually works. When you smoke meat with burning wood, you're introducing specific molecules that react chemically with the proteins, fats, and sugars on the surface of the meat. You need enough of these smoke vapors to get the reaction started, but once they begin, it works a lot like the Maillard reaction. You don't need to keep adding more and more smoke. Beyond a certain point, you just need time and temperature to let the chemistry do its work and develop those deep colors and complex flavors. Just like how collagen breaks down faster at higher temperatures, these reactions speed up dramatically when things get hotter. This is why the same deep chocolate brown bark that can take days to develop with cold smoking and many hours of traditional low and slow barbecue can happen in a couple of hours when your surface temperature is above 200 degrees. Great barbecue isn't about drowning your meat in smoke. It's about understanding that you're just coaxing along chemical reactions that need the right amount of time at the right temperature. And now it's time to wrap this brisket, clean up, and serve some barbecue. Wrapping stops evaporative cooling, letting the meat come down slowly from 205 degrees to a serving temperature of about 160 degrees over the next hour. During this resting period, the meat will become more tender and the bark continues to develop. Those light brown and red pigments will polymerize, becoming bigger, dark molecules that give our bark that almost black, dark chocolate appearance that we're after. At the same time, the harsh volatiles from fresh smoke tend to mellow, softening the bark's bite. Wrapping and resting for at least an hour and ideally longer is one of the biggest differences between mediocre backyard barbecue and some of the best stuff you'll get from Pitmasters in Texas. Let's slice some brisket. My final time was 6 hours, 7 minutes, and 12 seconds. You can judge how my brisket looks for yourself. But for me, that's 90% as good as some of the best brisket I've had, with a 100% chance I'll be run out of Texas on my next visit.
Do you have any barbecue sauce?
No brisket for you.